The bright red coffee mug trembled slightly in Lauren Harlow's hand as she stared through the cafe window. Time seemed to slow down as her brain struggled to process what her eyes were seeing. There, at a corner table bathed in warm afternoon light, sat her husband of 11 years, Carl, his fingers intimately entwined with those of a young woman Lauren had never seen before. The woman was leaning forward, laughing at something Carl had said, her free hand playfully touching his arm in a gesture that spoke volumes. Lauren had only stopped to get a coffee on her way back from a client meeting. A successful meeting, she had thought proudly just moments ago. After 3 years of building her freelance design business while raising 2 young daughters, she had finally landed a contract that would bring financial stability and creative fulfillment. She had been excited to share the news with Carl. Now, as she stood frozen on the sidewalk outside Maple Street Cafe, that excitement turned to ice in her veins. She watched as Carl brought the woman's hand to his lips, a tender gesture he hadn't shown Lauren in years. His wedding ring caught the light, a mocking glint that sent a sharp pain through Lauren's chest. 11 years of marriage, 2 beautiful daughters, a home they had built together. All of it suddenly felt like a carefully constructed illusion. Her first instinct was to run, to get back in her car and pretend she hadn't seen anything, to preserve the comfortable life she had worked so hard to maintain. But something deeper stirred within her, something that had been dormant for too long, a sense of dignity, of self-worth. Without fully realizing what she was doing, Lauren straightened her cream-colored blouse, ran a hand through her chestnut hair, and walked purposefully toward the cafe entrance. Her heart hammered against her ribs with each step, but her face remained composed, a mask of calm determination. The bell above the door announced her arrival with a cheerful jingle that felt jarringly out of place. Several patrons glanced up briefly before returning to their conversations, but Lauren's eyes remained fixed on the corner table. She saw the exact moment Carl noticed her, his face draining of color, his body stiffening in panic. The young woman, oblivious to the unfolding drama, continued talking animatedly until she realized Carl was no longer listening. "Carl," the woman said, her voice carrying across the now too quiet cafe. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Lauren approached their table with measured steps. She felt oddly detached, as though watching herself in a movie. The woman, pretty, probably in her late 20s, with cascading dark hair, looked up with mild curiosity. "Hello, Carl," Lauren said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her. Carl's mouth opened and closed wordlessly, his complexion ashen. "Lauren," he finally managed, the name falling from his lips like a confession. This isn't." The woman looked between them, confusion clouding her features. Then her eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. "Carl?" she questioned, pulling her hand from his grasp. "What's going on?" Lauren pulled out an empty chair and sat down, setting her purse on the table with deliberate calm. A waitress approached, and Lauren ordered a black coffee without looking up. When the waitress left, a heavy silence descended on the table. "Aren't you going to introduce us, Carl?" Lauren asked, her tone conversational, though her heart was shattering into 1,000 pieces. Carl swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cafe's air conditioning. "Lauren, please, let me explain." "I'm Sabrina," the woman interrupted, extending her hand with visible uncertainty. "And you are?" Lauren took the offered hand, noting the expensive manicure and the absence of any wedding band. "I'm Lauren, Carl's wife." Sabrina's perfectly shaped eyebrows shot up, and she jerked her hand back as though burned. "Wife?" she repeated, turning to Carl with incredulity. "You told me you were divorced." "For 2 years." Carl's face flushed deep red. "Sabrina, please." "2 years?" Lauren echoed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "That's interesting, considering our anniversary was last month. The girls made us breakfast in bed, remember, Carl? Maya spent all night making that card with the hearts and glitter." Sabrina's expression morphed from confusion to outrage. Girls? You have children? Her voice rose sharply, drawing curious glances from nearby tables. 2 daughters, Lauren confirmed, maintaining her composure through sheer force of will. Maya is 7. Molly is 5. Sabrina stood abruptly, grabbing her designer purse. You disgusting liar! She spat at Carl. 5 months, Carl. 5 months you've been telling me you were ready to move forward, that you wanted to build a life with me. The waitress returned with Lauren's coffee, hesitating awkwardly before setting it down and hurrying away. Lauren wrapped her hands around the warm mug, grateful for something to hold on to as her world collapsed around her. Sabrina, please sit down, Carl pleaded, reaching for her wrist. I can explain everything. Sabrina yanked her arm away. Explain? You told me your ex-wife was difficult about visitation rights with your daughter. Singular. 1 teenage daughter who lived primarily with her mother. She turned to Lauren, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. None. Lauren nodded, believing her. The pain and shock on Sabrina's face were too raw to be feigned. It seems we've both been lied to. Sabrina gathered her things, shooting Carl one last disgusted look. Don't call me. Don't text me. Delete my number. She paused, then added with quiet fury, and that apartment you claimed was yours? I want my key back. Tonight. With that, she strode out of the cafe, the door closing forcefully behind her. The cafe had grown uncomfortably quiet, other patrons poorly disguising their interest in the unfolding drama. Carl ran both hands through his salt and pepper hair, his wedding ring catching the light again. Lauren, he started, his voice low and urgent. This isn't what it looks like. Really? Lauren took a sip of her coffee, surprised by her own calm. Because it looks like you've been living a double life, Carl. It looks like you've been lying to me, to our daughters, and apparently to that poor woman as well. It's complicated, he insisted. Work has been stressful, and you've been so busy with your freelance stuff and the girls. Stop. Lauren held up a hand. Don't you dare blame this on me or our children. Carl's expression hardened. You haven't exactly been attentive lately, Lauren. A man has needs. Needs? Lauren repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. Like the need for honesty? Respect? Loyalty? Those kinds of needs? A muscle twitched in Carl's jaw. You're making a scene, he hissed, glancing around at the interested onlookers. No, Carl. You made the scene when you decided to cheat on your family. Lauren took another sip of her coffee, using the moment to steady herself. An apartment, Carl? You've been maintaining a separate apartment? Carl shifted uncomfortably. It's just a small place. For work sometimes, when I need to stay late. And you gave your girlfriend a key. It wasn't a question. She's not my girlfriend, Carl insisted, though his eyes wouldn't meet hers. What should I call her then? Your mistress? Your side piece? Lauren's composure was beginning to crack. How many others are there, Carl? How many women think they're in a relationship with a divorced father of one? Carl's silence was answer enough. Lauren felt sick to her stomach. The coffee she'd been drinking threatened to come back up. Do you love her? The question slipped out before she could stop it, and Lauren immediately hated herself for asking. Carl sighed heavily. Lauren, can we please discuss this at home? Like adults? Like adults? Lauren laughed, a hollow sound. Adults don't live double lives, Carl. Adults don't lie to their spouses and children. Keep your voice down, he snapped, his facade of contrition slipping to reveal the anger underneath. Lauren leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Carl. Not after this. She stood, leaving her coffee mostly untouched. Carl reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Don't come home tonight, she said quietly. I need time to think about what happens next. Where am I supposed to go? He demanded, his entitled indignation almost comical under the circumstances. Lauren shouldered her purse, a strange calm settling over her. I hear you have an apartment. As she walked away, she felt dozens of eyes on her back, heard the murmurs and whispers. But for the first time in years, Lauren wasn't concerned with appearances or what others thought of her. The only thought in her mind was how she would tell her daughters that their family was about to change forever. In her car, Lauren sat with her hands gripping the steering wheel, staring blankly ahead. Tears wouldn't come. Not yet. Instead, a cold determination was building inside her, a resolve she hadn't known she possessed. Carl had always controlled everything: their finances, their social circle, their future plans. He'd made her feel lucky to have him, as though she were the one who needed to work harder to deserve his love and attention. As she started the engine, Lauren made a promise to herself. This betrayal wouldn't break her. It would remake her, and Carl Harlow would soon discover that he had severely underestimated the woman he had married. Lauren pulled into the driveway of their two-story suburban home, a property that had once represented everything she'd ever wanted. Now, as she stared at the perfect lawn and manicured shrubs, she wondered how much of her life had been built on lies. The sky had darkened with approaching storm clouds, matching her mood as she sat motionless in the car, gathering strength for what lay ahead. Mrs. Peterson from next door waved cheerfully while retrieving her mail. Lauren managed a weak smile in return, the muscle memory of neighborhood pleasantries still functioning despite her inner turmoil. How strange that the world continued as normal, while hers had shattered into unrecognizable pieces. Inside the house, Lauren was greeted by the babysitter, Amber, a college student who watched the girls after school 3 days a week, while Lauren met with clients. "They're upstairs playing," Amber reported, gathering her textbooks. "Maya finished all her homework, and Molly's been working on a drawing for you." "Thank you," Lauren replied, handing Amber her payment. She added an extra $20, earning a surprised smile from the young woman. "Is everything okay, Mrs. Harlow?" Amber asked, concern in her eyes. "You seem a little off." Lauren realized she must look as devastated as she felt. "Just a difficult client meeting," she lied, forcing a smile. "Nothing serious." After Amber left, Lauren climbed the stairs slowly, each step requiring conscious effort. From the playroom came the sound of her daughter's laughter, innocent and untouched by the storm about to hit their lives. She paused in the doorway, watching them. Maya was helping Molly build a tower with colorful blocks, her dark hair falling across her face as she concentrated. Molly, with her father's blue eyes and dimpled cheeks, clapped delightedly when they added another level without it toppling. "Mommy!" Molly noticed her first, abandoning the tower to run into Lauren's arms. Lauren lifted her youngest daughter, breathing in the scent of apple shampoo and childhood, holding her a little tighter than usual. Maya approached more cautiously, her perceptive eyes studying Lauren's face. At 7, she was already too observant, too sensitive to the emotional undercurrents around her. "What's wrong, Mom?" she asked directly. Lauren set Molly down and crouched to eye level with both girls. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetie. Mommy just had a long day." She tucked a strand of hair behind Maya's ear. "How about we make pizza for dinner? You can choose the toppings." The distraction worked for Molly, who cheered and began listing her favorite toppings. But Maya continued to watch Lauren with concern. "Where's Dad?" she asked. "He promised to help me with my science project tonight." The innocent question felt like a knife twisting in Lauren's chest. "Dad had to work late," she managed. "But I can help you with your project." Maya's shoulders slumped slightly. "He always works late." There was such resignation in her daughter's voice that Lauren felt a fresh wave of anger toward Carl. How many promises had he broken with their daughters while maintaining his alternate life? "I know, sweetheart, but I'm here, and I'm all yours tonight." Throughout the evening, Lauren moved through the motions of normalcy, making pizza, helping with Maya's volcano project, bathing Molly, reading bedtime stories, all while her mind raced, considering options, imagining conversations, planning next steps. When she finally closed Molly's bedroom door, exhaustion hit her like a physical blow. In the kitchen, Lauren poured herself a glass of wine, then set it down untouched. She needed clarity tonight, not numbness. Her phone had been silent all evening. No calls or texts from Carl, no apologies or explanations, just silence. Lauren moved to Carl's home office, a space she rarely entered. It was his domain, like so many aspects of their life together. She hesitated at the threshold, feeling like an intruder despite the circumstances. Then, with renewed determination, she stepped inside. The room was meticulously organized, desktop cleared of papers, pens arranged in perfect alignment, books shelved by size and color. Carl had always been particular about his spaces. Lauren sat at his desk and stared at the locked computer screen, wondering how many secrets it held. She opened the desk drawers one by one, finding nothing unusual until the bottom drawer on the right. Inside was a stack of mail addressed to Carl Harlow, but at an address she didn't recognize. With trembling hands, Lauren spread the envelopes across the desk. Bank statements, credit card bills, an internet service provider bill, all for an apartment in Westlake Heights, an upscale area 15 miles away. The dates on the statements went back 14 months. 14 months of deception, running parallel to family dinners, school events, and anniversary celebrations. Lauren's hands shook as she opened one of the bank statements. The monthly rent withdrawal was listed plainly, $2,200, more than their mortgage payment. As she continued searching, more discoveries emerged. A hidden compartment in the desk revealed a second cell phone. Sleek, expensive, and password-protected. A folder contained documents for a credit card she knew nothing about, with monthly statements showing charges at restaurants far nicer than any Carl had taken her to in years. Jewelry stores, weekend getaways to nearby coastal towns. The scope of the deception was breathtaking. This wasn't a momentary lapse or a recent affair. This was calculated, sustained betrayal. Lauren felt physically ill, bracing herself against the desk as waves of nausea washed over her. When her phone buzzed with an incoming text, she nearly jumped out of her skin. It was Carl. Staying at a hotel tonight, as requested. We need to talk tomorrow. Don't do anything rash. Don't do anything rash. As if discovering her husband's elaborate double life was something to be calmly discussed over coffee. As if she were the unreasonable one. Lauren didn't respond. Instead, she took photos of everything she'd found. The statements, the bills, the hidden phone, evidence. Then she carefully returned everything exactly as she'd found it, closing the drawer on Carl's secret life. Sleep was impossible that night. Lauren lay in their bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments from their marriage with new context. The late nights at work, the unexplained weekend conferences, the gradual emotional distancing that she'd blamed herself for. She'd worked so hard to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, believing that if she could just do better, try harder, Carl would be fully present again. What a fool she'd been. Morning came with no answers but a steely resolve. After getting the girls ready for school, maintaining a facade of normalcy that drained her completely, Lauren called her most reliable client and explained she needed a few personal days. Then she dropped Maya at elementary school and Molly at preschool, lingering longer than usual during goodbyes, drawing strength from their innocent love. Back home, Lauren showered and dressed with unusual care, choosing a tailored navy dress that made her feel protected, armored. At precisely 9:30, she drove to the bank where they held their joint accounts. The personal banker recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Harlow, lovely to see you," he greeted warmly. "How can I help you today?" "I'd like detailed statements for all our accounts," Lauren said calmly, "and information about any accounts my husband might have opened separately." The banker's smile faltered slightly. "I'd be happy to provide statements for your joint accounts, but for Mr. Harlow's personal accounts, he would need to request those himself." Lauren had anticipated this. "I understand. In that case, I'd like to open a new account in my name only, and I'd like to transfer half of our joint savings into it." The banker's expression remained professionally neutral, but Lauren caught the flicker of understanding in his eyes. He'd seen this before: marriages unraveling, assets being divided, the first financial steps toward separation. By noon, Lauren had secured half of their joint savings, $62,000, in an account only she could access. It wasn't theft, it was self-preservation. She had no idea what Carl might do when confronted, and she needed to protect herself and her daughters. Her next stop was the office of Riley Hartman, a divorce attorney whose reputation for fierce advocacy preceded her. Lauren had found her name after a quick online search for the city's top divorce lawyers, specifically those who specialized in cases involving financial deception. Riley's office was minimalist and elegant, with awards and credentials tastefully displayed. The attorney herself was a study in controlled power, sharp-eyed, impeccably dressed, with a handshake that conveyed both strength and reassurance. "Tell me everything," Riley instructed once they were seated in her office. "Don't leave anything out, no matter how embarrassing or painful." For the next hour, Lauren recounted the events of the previous day, the discoveries she'd made, and her suspicions about the extent of Carl's deception. Riley took meticulous notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly listening with focused attention. "What do you want, Lauren?" Riley asked when Lauren had finished. "Beyond the practicalities of financial settlement and custody arrangements, what outcome are you hoping for?" The question caught Lauren off guard. In the whirlwind of discovery and reaction, she hadn't had time to consider what she truly wanted. "I want," she began slowly, searching for words. "I want my daughters to be protected from as much pain as possible. I want financial security for their future and mine. And I want," her voice strengthened, "I want Carl to face consequences for what he's done. Real consequences." Riley nodded, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. "Good. That clarity will help guide our strategy." She leaned forward. "Here's what happens next. We'll file for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct. Before that, though, we need to gather comprehensive evidence of his affairs and hidden assets. I have photos of the statements I found," Lauren offered. "That's a start," Riley acknowledged. "But we need more, much more. I'll engage a forensic accountant who specializes in uncovering hidden assets in divorce cases, and I recommend hiring a private investigator to document his activities with this Sabrina woman and any others." The suggestion made Lauren's stomach turn. "That feels so invasive." Riley's expression softened momentarily. "I understand, but Carl invaded your marriage, your family, your trust. This isn't about revenge, Lauren. It's about ensuring you and your daughters receive what you're legally and morally entitled to." By the time Lauren left Riley's office, she had a detailed action plan and the first stirrings of something that felt like hope, not hope for reconciliation. That door had closed the moment she saw Carl holding another woman's hand, but hope that she might emerge from this nightmare with her dignity and future intact. As Lauren drove to pick up her daughters from school, her phone rang. Carl's name flashed on the screen. She let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message at a red light. "Lauren, this is ridiculous. I'm coming home tonight. We need to talk like adults and work through this. What happened was a mistake, but it doesn't have to mean the end of our family. Think about the girls." The mention of their daughters ignited a fresh wave of anger. How dare he use Maya and Molly as emotional leverage? When Lauren pulled up to the preschool pickup line, she spotted Molly waiting with her teacher. The sight of her youngest daughter's face lighting up at seeing her car triggered an unexpected surge of tears. Lauren quickly wiped them away before Molly could notice. "Mommy, I made a butterfly today," Molly announced as Lauren helped her into her car seat. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Lauren replied, carefully securing the handmade paper butterfly. "Just like you." As they drove to collect Maya, Lauren glanced at Molly in the rearview mirror, happily singing to herself, blissfully unaware that her world was about to change forever. The weight of protecting her daughters from the fallout of Carl's betrayal felt crushing. But there was strength growing within her, too. a fierce, protective resolve that would carry her through whatever came next. Carl had underestimated her, dismissing her as just a wife, just a mother. He was about to discover just how profound a miscalculation that had been. The house was quiet, except for the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift from Carl's parents that Lauren had always found imposing. She sat at the kitchen island, fingers wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold, waiting. The girls were asleep upstairs, their evening routine completed with forced cheerfulness that had drained Lauren's remaining emotional reserves. When Carl's key turned in the front door at 8:23, Lauren straightened her spine and steadied her breathing. She'd rehearsed what to say, planned her responses to his likely arguments and manipulations. Riley had advised her to record their conversation, and Lauren's phone now sat on the counter, the recording app active but screen darkened. Carl entered with the confident stride of a man who believed he controlled the situation, his expression a practiced blend of contrition and authority. He'd changed into fresh clothes, likely purchased that day rather than retrieved from their home, and his hair was freshly cut. Even in crisis, appearance mattered to Carl Harlow. "The girls asleep?" he asked casually, as if this were any ordinary evening. "Yes," Lauren replied, her voice deliberately neutral. "They asked about you at bedtime." A flicker of genuine emotion crossed Carl's face before he masked it. He set his keys on the counter and loosened his tie. "Lauren, we need to talk about what happened. What you saw yesterday." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It wasn't what it looked like." "Really?" Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Because it looked like you were holding hands with a woman who believed she was in a relationship with a divorced man." Carl sighed heavily, adopting the weary expression he typically used when explaining complex matters to her. A look that had once made her feel intellectually inferior, but now only fueled her anger. "Sabrina is a colleague who's been going through a difficult time. Her father is ill, and she needed emotional support. The divorce story was a misunderstanding." He moved to the refrigerator, extracting a beer with the entitlement of someone in their own domain. "She developed feelings that I didn't encourage." "And the apartment in Westlake Heights?" Lauren asked quietly. "Was that also a misunderstanding?" Carl's hand froze halfway to his mouth, the beer bottle suspended. For a brief moment, genuine surprise registered in his eyes before he recovered. "You've been going through my things. You've been living a double life," Lauren countered. "Did you really expect me not to look for answers?" Setting the beer down untouched, Carl ran a hand through his hair. "The apartment is for work, a place to stay when I'm working late on projects. The company subsidizes it." "Interesting." Lauren maintained her composure with effort. "Because I called your HR department this morning. They have no record of any housing subsidy or secondary residence allowance for you." Carl's expression hardened. "You called my workplace? Jesus, Lauren, are you trying to damage my career?" "I'm trying to uncover the truth," she replied, "something you seem incapable of providing. This is exactly why I kept certain things separate." Carl snapped, his facade of remorse crumbling. "You've never understood the pressures I'm under, the complexity of my position. And the credit card statement showing dinners for two at the Riverview, the weekend getaways to Oceanside Inn, were those work pressures too?" Carl's eyes narrowed. "You had no right to go through my private papers, and you had no right to betray our marriage vows," Lauren replied, her voice gaining strength. "To lie to me, to our daughters, to create this elaborate fiction." "Don't be dramatic," Carl dismissed with a wave of his hand. "Men in my position often need to maintain certain accommodations. It doesn't mean I don't care about you and the girls." Lauren stared at him, truly seeing him perhaps for the first time in their marriage. This confident, handsome, successful man, whom she'd placed on a pedestal for years, he was nothing more than a collection of calculated lies and entitlement. "How many others have there been, Carl?" she asked quietly. "This conversation is pointless," he deflected, reaching for his beer again. "What matters now is how we move forward." For the sake of the girls, we need to put this behind us. Like you put Sabrina behind you? Or was she just the most recent? Carl's jaw tightened. I'm not going to engage in this, Lauren. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting to pay the water bill or burning dinner, Lauren said. What you've done is systematic deception. For 14 months, at minimum, you've maintained a separate residence, spent thousands of dollars of family money on other women, and constructed elaborate lies to cover your tracks. Family money? Carl laughed coldly. My money, Lauren. Let's be clear about that. Who earns the primary income in this household? Who pays for this house? The girls' private school tuition, your luxury SUV. There it was, the weapon he'd always wielded when cornered. Financial dominance. For years, he'd subtly reinforced her economic dependence, grudgingly supporting her freelance career, while reminding her of its insignificance compared to his executive salary. Our money, Carl. I gave up my career to raise our children. I've built my business while managing our household, coordinating the girls' activities, maintaining our social obligations, all so you could focus on your precious career. A career that provides everything you have, he shot back. Lauren took a deep breath. She would not allow him to derail the conversation. I spoke with a lawyer today. The statement landed like a physical blow. Carl's expression shifted from condescension to alarm. You what? I've retained Riley Hartman to represent me in our divorce proceedings. Carl set his beer down with deliberate control. Don't be absurd. We're not getting divorced over one indiscretion. We're getting divorced because you've been living a double life, Lauren corrected him. Because you've diverted family funds to support that life, lied to me and our children, and shown no genuine remorse for any of it. Riley Hartman, Carl repeated, recognition dawning. The shark who represented Tim Warner's ex-wife? The one who took him for millions? He barked a humorless laugh. You think you're going to do that to me? Lauren, be realistic. You signed a prenuptial agreement. See, a prenuptial agreement that becomes invalid in cases of proven adultery, Lauren replied calmly, gratified to see genuine shock register on his face. Did you think I wouldn't have Riley review it? Carl's composure slipped further. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting to a situation you don't fully understand. I understand perfectly, Carl. I understand that you've betrayed everything our marriage was supposed to represent. I understand that you've stolen from our family to finance your affairs. I understand that you see me as nothing more than an accessory to your life, the mother of your children, the hostess for your dinner parties, the background character in the Carl Harlow success story. Carl's expression darkened. You've never appreciated what I've given you. The lifestyle, the security, the lies, Lauren interrupted. The disrespect, the betrayal? I want you out of my house by the end of the week, Carl said coldly. Lauren had anticipated this move. This is my house too. My name is on the deed. And according to Riley, since I am the primary caregiver for our minor children, no court will force me to leave our family home during divorce proceedings. Carl stared at her, as if seeing a stranger. Perhaps he was. The Lauren he knew, or thought he knew, would never have challenged him like this, never have taken such decisive steps without his approval. The girls need stability, Lauren continued. They'll remain here, with me, in their home. You're welcome to remove your personal belongings, but this house and its contents stay as they are until the court determines otherwise. You've clearly been well coached, Carl said bitterly. Did your lawyer also advise you on how this will affect the girls? How they'll feel when their family is torn apart because their mother couldn't forgive one mistake? The emotional manipulation might once have worked. Not anymore. Don't you dare use our daughters as leverage, Carl. If you cared about their stability, you wouldn't have risked everything with your one mistake, which we both know was neither singular nor accidental. Carl's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly, then returned it without answering. Sabrina? Lauren asked with raised eyebrows. Or someone else? Another woman who thinks she's dating a divorced father of one? This conversation is over, Carl declared, snatching his keys from the counter. You're clearly not in a rational state of mind. We'll discuss this when you've calmed down. I've never been calmer or more rational, Lauren replied, and there's nothing to discuss. My lawyer will contact yours tomorrow. Carl's face reddened with anger. You think you can handle this on your own? You've been a stay-at-home mom for most of our marriage. Your little design business barely covers the grocery bill. I earned $64,000 last year, Lauren stated flatly, while managing our household, raising our children, and supporting your career. I'm more capable than you've ever given me credit for. Carl scoffed, but uncertainty had crept into his expression. He'd always underestimated her, categorized her as dependent and docile. The woman standing before him now, composed, determined, steps ahead of him, didn't fit his narrative. This isn't over, he warned, moving toward the door. You have no idea what you're getting into. Neither do you, Lauren replied softly. After the door closed behind him, Lauren released a shaky breath, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. She sank onto a kitchen stool, trembling with adrenaline and emotional exhaustion. But beneath the exhaustion was something unexpected, a sense of power she hadn't felt in years. Her phone chimed with a text message from Riley. How did it go? Lauren responded simply, exactly as expected. He underestimates me. Riley's reply came quickly. They always do. That's our advantage. The following morning brought a flurry of activity. Riley's office filed the initial divorce papers, and Carl was formally served at his office. A tactical decision Riley had suggested to establish the seriousness of Lauren's intent. By noon, Lauren had received 6 missed calls from Carl, and 3 increasingly angry voicemails, which she forwarded directly to Riley without listening to them fully. The forensic accountant Riley had recommended, a meticulous woman named Eleanor Bryce, arrived at the house to begin reviewing the financial documents Lauren had gathered. Eleanor's methodical approach and obvious expertise provided Lauren with a strange comfort. This was a professional who had seen it all before, who knew exactly where to look for hidden assets and financial misconduct. Most spouses in your husband's position make predictable mistakes, Eleanor explained as she created organized files on her laptop. They think they're being clever, but there are patterns we know to look for. Money leaves trails, Mrs. Harlow. Always. By mid-afternoon, Eleanor had already identified several concerning transactions. Large cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts with unfamiliar numbers, and questionable business expense reimbursements that suggested Carl might be double-dipping, charging personal expenses to both the company and their family accounts. This is preliminary, of course, Eleanor cautioned, but based on what I'm seeing, we should expand our investigation to include his company benefits, retirement accounts, and possibly offshore holdings. Lauren felt a dizzying mix of vindication and despair. The extent of Carl's deception seemed to grow by the hour, each revelation reinforcing that her 11-year marriage had been built on shifting sand. When it was time to pick up the girls from school, Lauren forced herself to set aside the mounting evidence of betrayal and focus on maintaining normalcy for her daughters. Maya, perceptive as always, asked immediately about Carl's absence. "Where's Dad? He promised to help with my science project presentation tonight." Lauren swallowed the bitter retort that rose to her lips. Carl had clearly forgotten his promise to Maya, another in a long line of paternal disappointments disguised as work commitments. "Dad had to go out of town suddenly for work, sweetie," Lauren explained, the half-truth bitter on her tongue. "But I'll help you with your presentation. We'll make it amazing together." Maya's small shoulders slumped slightly. He always has to work. The simple observation, delivered with such resignation, broke Lauren's heart. How many times had Carl disappointed their daughters? How many promises had he broken while maintaining his alternate life? That evening, after helping Maya practice her volcanic eruption demonstration and reading Molly 3 bedtime stories, Lauren sat alone in the kitchen with a glass of wine and her laptop. She'd been avoiding social media since discovering Carl's betrayal, but now she logged into Facebook with a specific purpose. There, in Carl's friend list, she found her, Sabrina Woodward. Her profile picture showed a beautiful young woman with dark, wavy hair and a confident smile. Lauren hesitated only briefly before sending a private message. "Sabrina, it's Lauren Harlow. I think we should talk. Not about reconciling with Carl. That ship has sailed for both of us, I imagine, but about comparing notes. If you're willing, I believe we could help each other understand the full scope of his deception." Lauren sent the message without overthinking it, then closed her laptop. She didn't expect an immediate response, or any response at all, but she needed to try. The more she learned about Carl's double life, the more she suspected Sabrina might have valuable information. Just as she was preparing for bed, Lauren's phone buzzed with a notification. Sabrina had responded, "I'll meet you. Not because I owe you anything, but because I'm starting to suspect he lied to me about a lot more than just being divorced. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Capital City Coffee on 3rd Street. I'll be wearing a red scarf." Lauren stared at the message, a mixture of apprehension and determination swirling within her. Meeting her husband's mistress for coffee wasn't exactly covered in the How to Handle Your Spouse's Infidelity handbook, but conventional approaches had never revealed the truth about Carl. Perhaps it was time for unconventional methods. She typed a quick reply, "I'll be there. Thank you." As Lauren finally lay down to sleep, she realized something surprising. She hadn't cried today, not once. The paralyzing shock was giving way to something else entirely. A steely resolve to uncover every lie, to protect her daughters from further harm, and to emerge from this nightmare stronger than Carl could ever have imagined. Tomorrow, she would face Sabrina Woodward across a coffee table and take another step into the unknown territory of her new reality. A reality where Lauren Harlow was no longer the trusting wife, but a woman determined to reclaim her power, her dignity, and her future. The morning air carried a crisp autumn chill as Lauren approached Capital City Coffee, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd chosen her outfit with care, a structured blazer over a simple blouse and jeans, wanting to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. Through the cafe window, she spotted a young woman with a vivid red scarf draped around her neck, dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. Sabrina Woodward looked even younger in person than in her social media photos, perhaps 29 or 30 at most. Lauren took a steadying breath and pushed open the door. The warm aroma of coffee enveloped her as she walked directly to Sabrina's table. Recognition flashed in the younger woman's eyes, followed by a complex mixture of emotions, embarrassment, curiosity, and something that looked surprisingly like relief. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Lauren said, settling into the chair opposite Sabrina. "I ordered you a latte," Sabrina replied, gesturing to the steaming mug waiting on Lauren's side. "I hope that's okay. Carl mentioned once that it was your usual." The casual reference to Carl, knowing her coffee preference, a small, intimate detail shared between lovers, landed like a physical blow. Lauren nodded, wrapping her hands around the warm mug, but not drinking. "This is unusual," Sabrina continued, her voice softer than in the heated cafe confrontation 2 days earlier. "I've never had coffee with my boyfriend's wife before." "Ex-boyfriend," Lauren corrected gently. A sad smile touched Sabrina's lips. "Definitely ex." She straightened her shoulders. "Look, I want to be clear about something right away. I had no idea Carl was married. None. He told me he'd been divorced for 2 years, that his ex-wife had moved to Chicago with their teenage daughter. He said they had an amicable arrangement, where he had visitation during school breaks." Her eyes filled with genuine distress. "I would never knowingly date a married man. Never." Lauren believed her. The raw hurt in the younger woman's eyes couldn't be faked. "I know," she said simply. "That's not why I wanted to meet." "Why did you then?" Sabrina asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Because I think we're both victims of the same skilled liar, Lauren replied, and I think together we might understand the full picture better than either of us could alone. Sabrina studied Lauren's face, seeming to assess her sincerity. Finally, she nodded. What do you want to know? Everything, Lauren said. How you met, what he told you about himself, his schedule, his life, anything that strikes you as significant, or that might contradict what I know. For the next hour, over refilled coffee cups, Sabrina detailed her 14-month relationship with Carl Harlow, or rather, with the fictional version of Carl he had presented to her. They had met at a charity fundraiser where Carl had introduced himself as a recently divorced executive who'd moved to the area for a fresh start. He'd been charming, attentive, seemingly transparent about his past. He showed me pictures of his daughter, Sabrina said, making air quotes with her fingers. A teenager named Emma, who supposedly lived with her mother in Chicago. She pulled out her phone and showed Lauren a photo. Lauren stared at the image in disbelief. It showed Carl with his arm around a teenage girl who was definitely not Maya or Molly. I have no idea who that is, she whispered, but those aren't our daughters. Sabrina's face paled. So he invented a fake daughter too. That's disturbed. Did you ever speak to this Emma? Lauren asked. No. He always said the time zones made it difficult to coordinate calls when I was around. Sabrina's expression hardened. God, the excuses were endless. Weekend trips canceled at the last minute because of work emergencies. Mysterious phone calls he'd take in another room. Times when he was completely unreachable. She looked up suddenly. Those were probably times he was with you and your real daughters, weren't they? Lauren nodded, feeling sick. Family dinners, birthday parties, school events. Sabrina pushed her coffee cup away, her appetite apparently gone. I feel so stupid. Don't, Lauren said firmly. Carl is exceptionally skilled at manipulation. He had me fooled for 11 years of marriage. How did you find out? Before the cafe, I mean. Lauren hesitated, then decided honesty was the only approach that made sense now. I didn't know anything until I saw you two through the cafe window. Everything I've learned since has been through investigation afterward. Sabrina looked genuinely shocked. You just happened to drive by? Right place, right time, Lauren confirmed with a humorless smile. Or wrong place, wrong time, depending on your perspective. Sabrina shook her head in disbelief. If you hadn't seen us that day, we'd both still be in the dark. The realization hung between them, heavy with implications. How much longer might Carl's deception have continued without that chance encounter? Sabrina, Lauren said carefully, you mentioned an apartment. In the cafe, you told Carl to return your key. His apartment in Westlake Heights, Sabrina confirmed. Though I'm guessing it's not just his apartment, is it? It's definitely not our family home, Lauren clarified. I found statements for it hidden in his office. He's been maintaining it for at least 14 months. Sabrina's expression darkened. I have a key because I was helping pay for it. Lauren's breath caught. What? 6 months into our relationship, Carl told me his company was downsizing and he was worried about his position. Sabrina's voice took on a bitter edge. He said he needed to maintain the apartment for client meetings and business entertaining, but with potential budget cuts, he needed help with the rent temporarily. He asked you for money? Lauren couldn't hide her shock. Not directly. He framed it as us building a future together. Said if I contributed to our living space now, it would show commitment to our relationship. Sabrina laughed without humor. I've been paying $800 monthly toward rent for the past 8 months, plus utilities and groceries whenever I stayed there, which was most weekends. Lauren did the mental calculation. Over $6,000 that this young woman had contributed to Carl's deception. I'm so sorry, Sabrina. Don't be. I'm the idiot who fell for it. Sabrina brushed hair from her face with a trembling hand. The worst part is, I was starting to think we might get engaged soon. He kept talking about taking our relationship to the next level once some big work project was completed. The conversation continued, each revelation more disturbing than the last. Carl had told Sabrina he was 40 years old, shaving 3 years off his actual age. He'd claimed his parents were both deceased, erasing Carl's very much alive mother, Jasmine. He'd described a childhood in Seattle, though Carl had grown up in Boston. It was as if he had constructed an entirely new identity, borrowing only the professional accomplishments from his real life. "Do you think I was the only one?" Sabrina asked suddenly. "Besides you, I mean. Do you think there were others?" Lauren hesitated. "I don't know, but given how elaborately he constructed this separate life, I wouldn't rule it out." Sabrina nodded slowly, then reached for her purse. "There's something else you should see." She extracted a manila folder and slid it across the table. "I found this in his desk at the apartment yesterday when I went to collect my things." Lauren opened the folder with trepidation. Inside were financial statements for accounts she'd never seen before, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, cryptocurrency investments, documentation for a shell company named Harlow Consulting, LLC. "There's more," Sabrina said quietly. "Keep looking." Beneath the financial documents lay a folder labeled Exit Strategy in Carl's distinctive handwriting. Lauren's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a meticulously detailed plan for leaving his current life, research on states with favorable divorce laws, notes on asset protection strategies, even custody arrangements that would allow him minimal contact with dependents while avoiding significant support obligations. "He was planning to leave," Lauren whispered, the reality hitting her like a physical blow. "Both of us, apparently." Sabrina nodded grimly. "There's a list of cities at the back where he was considering relocating. Denver, Austin, Phoenix, all places where he has no existing connections." Lauren stared at the documents, a strange calm settling over her. This wasn't just betrayal, it was calculated abandonment. Carl had been preparing to discard his entire family, his girlfriend, his existing life, like changing a suit that no longer fit. "I'm keeping these," Lauren said, closing the folder decisively. "My lawyer needs to see them." "That's why I brought them," Sabrina replied. "I figured they'd help your case." She hesitated, then added, "There's something else you should know. I'm not the only other woman." Lauren looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "About 3 months ago, I stopped by the apartment unexpectedly. Carl wasn't there, but as I was leaving, I ran into a woman in the hallway who clearly recognized me. She looked surprised, then angry, and hurried away. When I asked Carl about her later, he said she was a neighbor who had boundary issues and was always trying to befriend residents." Sabrina twisted her coffee cup nervously. "I believed him at the time, but now—" "Do you know who she was?" Lauren asked. "Not her name, but Carl belongs to a cycling club that meets on Saturday mornings. There's a photo on his desk of the group, and she's in it. Long blonde hair, athletic build." Lauren felt dizzy with this new information. A third woman, perhaps more. The scope of Carl's deception seemed limitless. "Why are you helping me?" Lauren asked suddenly. "You could have kept these documents, walked away, never contacted me again." Sabrina was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "Because when I realized how completely he had deceived me, I felt erased, like the person I thought I was in love with never existed. And I'm angry, not just for myself, but for you too." She met Lauren's eyes directly. "And honestly, because I want him to face consequences for what he's done to both of us." As they prepared to leave the cafe, Sabrina hesitated. "What will you do now?" "Take this to my lawyer," Lauren replied, holding up the folder, "and then prepare for war." For the first time, a genuine smile flickered across Sabrina's face. "Good. Make him regret every lie." They parted with an awkward but sincere handshake, unlikely allies connected by shared betrayal. When Lauren arrived at Riley Hartman's office 20 minutes later, the attorney's eyes widened at the contents of the folder. "This is extraordinary," Riley murmured as she examined the exit strategy documents. "I've handled hundreds of divorce cases involving infidelity, but I've rarely seen this level of premeditated deception. What does it mean for our case? Lauren asked. Riley's expression turned predatory. It means Carl Harlow has severely miscalculated. Judges don't look kindly on spouses who hide assets and plan abandonment. This strengthens our position considerably. She set the documents aside and fixed Lauren with a serious look. But we need to move quickly. Now that he knows you're onto him, he'll be scrambling to cover his tracks, possibly moving money or destroying evidence. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of legal activity. Riley's team filed emergency motions to freeze Carl's known accounts. The forensic accountant accelerated her investigation, armed with new account numbers from Sabrina's documents. A private investigator was engaged to document any attempts by Carl to remove assets or access the Westlake Heights apartment. Throughout it all, Lauren maintained as much normalcy as possible for Maya and Molly, shielding them from the storm swirling around their family. Carl had texted requesting to see the girls, and despite her personal feelings, Lauren had agreed to a supervised visit at a family restaurant. She watched from a nearby table as he presented gifts to their daughters, his performance as the doting father almost convincing if one didn't know the truth lurking beneath. Maya, perceptive as always, approached Lauren afterward while Carl was helping Molly in the restroom. "Mom, is Dad in trouble?" she asked quietly. Lauren crouched to her daughter's level, careful with her words. "Why would you think that, sweetie?" Maya's small face creased with worry. "He's being too nice, and he kept asking if you had people at the house, or if you were talking about him." A chill ran through Lauren. Carl was using their 7-year-old daughter to gather intelligence. "What did you tell him?" "That you were sad sometimes, but trying to hide it," Maya replied, with the devastating honesty of childhood. "And that a lady with lots of papers came to the house?" Lauren hugged her daughter close, heart racing. "Maya, listen to me. If Dad asks you questions like that again, it's okay to say you don't know or don't want to talk about it. You don't have to answer grown-up questions, okay?" Maya nodded solemnly, her eyes too knowing for a child her age. "Are you and Dad getting divorced like Emily's parents?" The direct question caught Lauren off guard. She'd planned to wait, to consult with a child psychologist on the best approach for this conversation. But Maya's intuitive understanding demanded honesty. "Yes, sweetheart, Dad and I are getting divorced, but that doesn't change how much we both love you and Molly." Maya absorbed this information with surprising calm. "Will we still live in our house?" "Yes, you will. With me. And Dad will live somewhere else?" "That's right." Maya was quiet for a moment, processing. "Is it because Dad has a girlfriend? I saw him with a lady at the mall. He told me she was just a work friend, and not to tell you because it would make you upset for no reason." Lauren fought to keep her expression neutral, despite the rage boiling inside her. Carl had made their daughter complicit in his deception, burdened her with an adult secret. "Did that make you uncomfortable, keeping that secret from me?" Maya nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I didn't want to lie to you, Mom." "Oh, sweetheart." Lauren pulled her daughter close. "You never have to keep secrets that make you uncomfortable. Not from me, not from anyone. And what happened between me and Dad is grown-up stuff that isn't your fault or your responsibility." As Carl returned with Molly, Lauren stood with renewed determination. He had manipulated their daughter, used a child as a shield for his betrayal. Any lingering doubt about the righteousness of her cause vanished in that moment. This wasn't just about his betrayal of their marriage. It was about the emotional harm he was willing to inflict on their children to protect himself. The battle lines were drawn, and Lauren Harlow was more ready than ever to fight. The courthouse stood imposing against the clear October sky, its granite columns and broad steps projecting an aura of solemnity and justice. Lauren climbed those steps slowly, each footfall deliberate, her attorney Riley Hartman at her side. Today was not the formal divorce trial, that would come later, but rather an emergency hearing regarding the financial injunctions Riley had filed upon discovering Carl's hidden assets. Remember, Riley murmured as they approached the massive oak doors. "Regardless of what Carl or his attorney claims, stay composed. Your dignity is your greatest weapon in that courtroom." Lauren nodded, smoothing the lapel of her navy suit. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of discovery and preparation. The forensic accountant had unearthed far more than even Lauren had anticipated. Not just the apartment and the accounts Sabrina had revealed, but an entire shadow financial structure that Carl had been building for nearly 2 years. $65,000 diverted from their joint savings. Retirement accounts she hadn't known existed. A shell corporation through which he'd purchased the Westlake Heights apartment under a business name rather than his own. And most disturbing of all, documentation suggesting he'd been systematically inflating his business expenses for reimbursement while underreporting his income to both Lauren and the IRS. Inside the courtroom, Lauren spotted Carl immediately, seated beside his attorney, Jackson Mills, a divorce lawyer known for aggressive tactics and representing high-net-worth clients. Carl looked immaculate, as always, in a charcoal suit, his posture radiating confidence. When he noticed Lauren, he offered a slight nod, as though they were colleagues at a business meeting rather than spouses whose marriage had imploded under the weight of his deceptions. "Classic power play," Riley whispered as they took their seats. "He wants you to think he's still in control, that this is just a minor inconvenience in his master plan." But Lauren saw what Riley didn't, the almost imperceptible tension in Carl's jaw, the slight dampness at his temples. Beneath that cultivated veneer of composure, Carl Harlow was worried. The hearing began with procedural formalities, but quickly progressed to the heart of the matter. Riley presented the court with meticulous documentation of Carl's financial deceptions, his voice measured but relentless as she outlined the trail of hidden assets, diverted funds, and systematic misrepresentations. "Your Honor," Riley concluded, "given the substantial evidence of Mr. Harlow's deliberate concealment of assets and his documented plans to leave the jurisdiction, we ask that all accounts identified in our filing remain frozen, that Mr. Harlow surrender his passport, and that the court appoint a receiver to prevent further dissipation of marital assets." Carl's attorney rose with practiced indignation. "Your Honor, these allegations are grossly exaggerated. My client maintains separate accounts for legitimate business purposes, all of which would have been disclosed during standard discovery. Mrs. Harlow has taken routine financial management and distorted it into some kind of elaborate conspiracy." The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and penetrating eyes, studied both attorneys thoughtfully. "Mr. Mills, these documents indicate your client has transferred substantial sums to offshore accounts, established a separate residence unknown to his wife, and prepared detailed plans for relocating outside this jurisdiction. How would you characterize those actions?" Mills hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the judge's direct question. "My client's business requires contingency planning, Your Honor. The documents Mrs. Harlow's team has presented have been taken entirely out of context." "Then perhaps your client can provide the appropriate context," the judge suggested, turning her gaze directly to Carl. "Mr. Harlow, would you care to explain why you've been moving assets offshore while researching states with favorable divorce laws?" Carl straightened his tie and adopted the confident expression Lauren had seen him use in countless business negotiations. "Your Honor, as an executive with significant responsibilities, I maintain various investment accounts as part of standard wealth management practices. The research into relocation options was merely exploratory, related to potential career opportunities." "And the separate apartment your wife knew nothing about?" the judge pressed. "A legitimate business expense for client entertainment and late-night work sessions," Carl replied smoothly. "My company's headquarters is 30 miles from our family home. Having a place closer to the office is simply practical." "A business expense you asked another woman to help pay for," the judge noted, referencing Sabrina's affidavit, "while telling her you were divorced." For the first time, Carl's composure faltered visibly. He hadn't expected Sabrina to provide sworn testimony. That situation is complicated, Your Honor. Indeed. The judge's tone was dry. Mr. Harlow, this court takes a dim view of litigants who play shell games with marital assets. Based on the evidence before me, I'm granting the emergency injunctions requested by Mrs. Harlow. All accounts identified will remain frozen pending further proceedings. You will surrender your passport to the court within 24 hours, and I am appointing a receiver to review all financial transactions you've made in the past 24 months. Lauren felt a wave of vindication wash over her, but maintained her composed exterior as the judge continued. Additionally, given the evidence that you involved your minor child in concealing your extramarital relationships, all visitation will be supervised until a full custody evaluation can be completed. This final pronouncement visibly shook Carl. His face flushed with anger, and he leaned over to whisper furiously to his attorney. Mills placed a restraining hand on his arm, a clear warning not to antagonize the judge further. As they left the courtroom, Lauren caught Carl's eye. For a brief moment, his mask slipped completely, revealing naked fury and something else, fear. For perhaps the first time, Carl Harlow was beginning to understand that he was not in control of this situation. First round goes decisively to us, Riley said as they descended the courthouse steps. Carl clearly didn't expect the judge to see through his explanations so quickly. What happens next? Lauren asked. Now we prepare for the main event, Riley replied. Carl knows he's vulnerable. His attorney will likely approach us about settlement terms within days. Riley's prediction proved accurate. 3 days after the hearing, Mills contacted her office requesting a settlement conference. The offer they presented was insultingly inadequate. Carl would keep the house and primary custody of the girls, while Lauren would receive a modest monthly support payment for 5 years. He still doesn't get it, Lauren said, shaking her head after reviewing the proposal. He thinks this is a negotiating tactic, that I'll be grateful for whatever crumbs he offers. Riley smiled thinly. Then let's educate him. Their counter-proposal was comprehensive and unyielding. Lauren would retain the family home and primary custody of the girls. Carl would pay substantial child support and alimony. All hidden assets would be declared and divided, with Lauren receiving compensation for funds Carl had diverted to his secret life. Most significantly, they demanded full financial transparency, including a forensic review of all his business expenses for the past 5 years. The response was immediate and explosive. Carl showed up at the house unannounced that evening, ignoring the temporary restraining order that required him to provide advance notice before visiting. "This is extortion!" he shouted when Lauren answered the door. "You're trying to destroy everything I've built." Lauren stood her ground, her voice calm but firm. "No, Carl. You destroyed it yourself with every lie, every betrayal, every dollar you stole from our family to finance your double life." "I built this life," he hissed, gesturing expansively at the house around them. "Everything we have is because of me, because of my work, my sacrifices." "Our sacrifices," Lauren corrected. "My career put on hold to raise our children. My support that allowed you to focus solely on your ambitions. My management of our home, our social connections, our family's emotional needs. You didn't build this life alone, Carl, and you certainly don't get to dismantle it on your terms." Something in her unwavering gaze seemed to unnerve him. This wasn't the accommodating, grateful Lauren he was accustomed to. This woman stood her ground with a confidence that matched his own. "The girls are asleep upstairs," she continued. "If you care about them at all, you'll leave now before they hear you making a scene." The mention of their daughters deflated some of Carl's righteous anger. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "This isn't over, Lauren." "No," she agreed. "But how it ends is no longer solely up to you." After Carl left, Lauren leaned against the closed door, her heart racing despite her outward calm. She'd stood her ground, but the confrontation had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of water with trembling hands, then noticed Maya standing in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. "Was that Dad yelling?" Maya asked quietly. Lauren set her glass down, crossing to her daughter and crouching to eye level. "Yes, sweetheart. Dad is upset about some grown-up things." "Is he mad at us?" Maya's voice was small, vulnerable. "No, not at all," Lauren assured her, smoothing Maya's hair. "Dad is dealing with some difficult consequences for choices he made. But none of this is your fault or Molly's fault. You are both so loved." Maya studied her mother's face with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see straight through adult pretenses. "You're different now, Mom." "Different how?" Lauren asked, genuinely curious about her daughter's perception. "Stronger," Maya said simply. "You don't look sad when you think no one's watching anymore." The observation, so insightful from a 7-year-old, brought unexpected tears to Lauren's eyes. "I am stronger," she acknowledged. "Sometimes difficult things can help us discover strength we didn't know we had." Maya nodded, as if this made perfect sense to her. Like in Frozen, when Elsa thought she had to hide her powers, but then she learned she was strongest when she wasn't afraid anymore. Lauren laughed softly, amazed by her daughter's ability to process complex emotional truths through the lens of her favorite movie. "Yes, exactly like that." Maya hugged her tightly. "I'm glad you're not hiding anymore, Mom." Over her daughter's shoulder, Lauren caught a glimpse of their reflection in the darkened window. Mother and child illuminated in the warm kitchen light, holding each other against the night. Not broken, as she had feared they would be, but reconfigured into something new and possibly stronger than before. The following weeks brought seismic shifts in Lauren's world. Carl's company placed him on administrative leave pending investigation of his financial irregularities, which Riley had tactically reported to their compliance department. With his income temporarily suspended and his assets frozen, Carl's negotiating position weakened considerably. Meanwhile, Lauren's design business flourished unexpectedly. A longtime client referred her for a major project, redesigning the visual identity for a regional healthcare network that would provide financial stability for months to come. The timing felt like cosmic justice, a validation of the talent she'd never fully believed in while living in Carl's shadow. Perhaps most surprising was the relationship that developed between Lauren and her mother-in-law, Jasmine. Rather than siding with her son, Jasmine had appeared at Lauren's door one afternoon, her eyes red-rimmed but her spine straight. "Carl told me some story about you misunderstanding an innocent friendship," Jasmine said without preamble. "But I've known my son his entire life. I've seen how he compartmentalizes, how he rewrites reality to suit his needs." She took Lauren's hands in her own. "I want you to know that I'm here for you and my granddaughters, regardless of what happens with Carl." The unexpected alliance brought Lauren to tears. "I was so afraid you'd hate me for this." Jasmine's expression was sad but resolute. "The only person I'm disappointed in is my son, and I've told him exactly that." When the final settlement conference arrived 60 days after that first courthouse appearance, Carl's transformation was striking. Gone was the confident executive who believed he could negotiate his way out of consequences. In his place sat a man humbled by circumstance. His company had transitioned his administrative leave to termination after their internal investigation. His girlfriend had provided damning testimony about financial manipulation, and his mother had made it clear she stood with Lauren and the girls. The agreement they ultimately reached exceeded even Riley's optimistic projections. Lauren received the family home, primary custody of the girls, and substantial support payments. Carl would have supervised visitation initially, with the potential for more flexible arrangements if he completed parenting classes and therapy. Most significantly, he was required to reimburse the full $65,000 he had diverted from their joint accounts, plus a penalty percentage that reflected the breach of fiduciary duty. "He caved on everything," Riley observed, as they left the final mediation session. "I've never seen such a complete capitulation." "He ran out of places to hide," Lauren replied, "and people willing to believe his version of reality." That evening, Lauren sat on the back porch swing, watching Maya and Molly chase fireflies in the twilight garden. The divorce would be finalized in 30 days, the legal punctuation mark on an 11-year chapter of her life. But the story of Lauren Harlow was far from over. Her phone chimed with a text message from Wesley Caldwell, Maya's science teacher, who had been providing thoughtful support during parent-teacher conferences and school events throughout the tumultuous divorce process. His message was simple: "Just checking in. Hope you and the girls are doing well." Lauren smiled, typing back, "We are. Better than I would have thought possible 6 months ago." His response came quickly: "You're stronger than you know. Always have been." Perhaps that was the real revelation of this painful journey. Not just Carl's betrayal, but Lauren's discovery of her own resilience. The woman who had once defined herself primarily as Carl Harlow's wife and the mother of his children now stood independently, her identity no longer tethered to his approval or validation. As darkness fell and she called the girls inside for bedtime routines, Lauren felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The path ahead wouldn't always be easy. Single parenthood rarely was, but she faced it without the crushing weight of deception and pretense that had characterized her marriage. Later, after tucking Molly in with 3 bedtime stories and listening to Maya's detailed plans for her upcoming science fair project, Lauren stood in the doorway of her bedroom, hers alone now, redecorated in colors she had chosen without considering anyone else's preferences. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of her with the girls at the beach last weekend, their faces alight with genuine joy. 6 months ago, Lauren had accidentally discovered her husband's betrayal and thought her world was ending. Instead, she had found the beginning of something new, a life rebuilt on honesty, strength, and the profound love she had for her daughters. The woman who had once believed she needed Carl Harlow to feel complete now knew better. She caught her reflection in the mirror, shoulders straight, eyes clear, the hesitant smile replaced by one of quiet confidence. Carl had underestimated her in every possible way. It was the last mistake he would ever make at her expense. In the quiet of her room, Lauren Harlow made a silent promise to herself and her daughters. They would not just survive this chapter, they would thrive beyond it. And the story they would write together would be more authentic, more joyful, and infinitely more powerful than anything she had dared to imagine in the shadow of her husband's lies. The greatest revenge, Lauren had discovered, wasn't in the courtroom victories or financial settlements. It was in the simple, profound realization that she was not defined by Carl's betrayal, but by her own courage in its aftermath. She had emerged not just intact, but transformed, stronger, wiser, and finally, genuinely free. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.